Hello everyone, Vladimir here and welcome to another video. Recently several people got in touch with me and they were asking whether I can install the Microsoft Office suite on their computer, preferably for free. Well, I don't crack the software anymore and I'm trying to instead recommend some viable alternatives which I think would really suit all their needs. One of such alternatives is the LibreOffice suite, which has tools like Writer, Calc, and basically those are clones of the Microsoft Office, and for most of the people they can offer everything such users need. However, for me personally, I don't need the LibreOffice suite at all. For years I'm doing all my notes, all my documentation in Markdown, and I'm storing my documents in Git, which is really nice because I can see differences I have versioning out of the box, so I can see all changes I've made over the years. It's really nice, but today I will focus on Markdown. I will show you what it is, what's it good for, and maybe you will start loving this format as much as I do. So let's start with that. What is Markdown? Markdown is, as the wiki says, lightweight markup language for creating formatted text using a plain text editor. So just a simple note, you are writing basically a pure text file. This text file contains some markup signs and you will see a cheat sheet in a minute. However, it's really easy to write, really easy to read, and once you get familiar with that, you can be really productive in writing such a documentation. Let me give you a real-world example. This one here is a blog post I wrote in June 2021, and this is how it looks like on my website. What probably you don't know, and most people don't know, is that this page was written entirely in Markdown, and it looks like this. This one here is called front matter and it's optional. We'll get back to that. What's important is I'm writing normal text and sometimes I just put some references in there and that's it. The output looks like this. Really neat, clean design. So I have separated the content from the visual form. That is really important. I'm not mixing that. I'm just writing the content and putting really basic hints, but I'm not defining style of the font, nothing like this. By the way, companies like GitHub, which host source code of many repositories online, have in-place renderers, so if they see in your repository that you store a file with ending with MD or MDX, they know it's a Markdown and they will render a really nice page out of the box. I didn't have to do this. So they see a document like this and they will render this, which is really neat. Take a look at this front matter here. Just 3 dashes. Some content in here and they will create a table. So now imagine that you are writing a documentation for your own purposes and you can really easily create something like that. This is just the beginning. You can add logos, you can do many stuff. And I will show you more examples as we go through. But first, let's go to the basics. How can you create Markdown? And how can you view how it will look like? So the easiest option is to install the Visual Studio Code, which is free. I will probably leave a link in the description of today's video. Now, click on File, New File. Now, either save this file and add a MD extension. That's the first option to tell. You need to basically tell Visual Studio that you are trying to create Markdown file and they will use the proper syntax highlighting and all this cool stuff you really need. The other option is to manually select the Markdown. So let's go here, and instead of plain text, just write Markdown. Another cool feature is this tab here. So if I click on preview, I can see at a glance how my document will probably look like on the internet. So when I start typing, on the left side there is a raw form of Markdown. On the right side you can see the generated Markdown file. So this is the representation. Now, probably if you want to create a documentation, you want to start with some headings. This is really simple. Heading level 1 is just this hashtag. Let's start with this hashtag and start writing something like heading. Do you see? It's clean, it has a bigger font size, and everything I did was I used this hashtag. If I want to use subheading, I will use 2 hashtags. There are a couple of levels, and normally, usually and typically what I use is level 1 to level 3. Most of the time this is all you need. Level 4, if you structure your document like this, there is probably something wrong. So subheading 2. The render, how it will look like, is dependent on the renderer. So GitHub may render it differently than other tools like GitLab, but that is not important. The important thing is that your document looks the same every time. And the differences between those renderers are really subtle. I mean, if you don't use any special characters, but we'll get to that. Alright, so let's say we have a new article. Let's get rid of that. And let's call it Markdown 101. Now, you can start writing right here, and it will put some text here. So this is a normal text. Now let's say you want to use unordered lists, which is another typical thing you want to use. This is really simple. You just use dash and start typing. So first item, second item, and now let's say you want to have a second degree list. So first item contains some sub items. It's really simple. Make 2 spaces, another dash, and start writing. Let me try if there is a third level too. And it is. So that is how we can structure the lists, the unordered lists. And now maybe you want to have ordered ones. So let's just change the dashes to numbers. Yeah, let's keep this as it is. 2 and 3. First sub item, let's delete that. Another typical thing I use is writing some quotations or black quotes. This is also very simple. Just read this sign here and start typing. So this here is a quotation, and you can make a multiple line quotation like this. You just repeat the character, the formatting character. And again, visually it looks quite different. You can see at a glance how nice it is. What's next? You can also create, what you will probably need is hypertext links. This is also really simple. Just write something you want to tag. So the Markdown wiki is here. Now I want to reference to the Markdown Wikipedia, so you can do this in two ways. Use brackets for the part you want to have a hypertext link, and now use parentheses and just put the link in here. So I'll do that. This is the Markdown, and I'll copy that. This is the first option, and you can see that the hypertext is green at this moment. I can extend this really simple, and now is here points to Wikipedia. Now this is the first possibility, which is nice if you have just one link you want to reference. If you are creating a document with many links, this would worsen the readability of your document. You don't want to do that. So instead you can make a reference below. For example, name your target like Markdown wiki, and this will point to this page. And now you can reference the Markdown wiki, but this time with brackets. So the result is the same, however, you have now all the links below. So imagine something like this. You write your document, here are the references, and you'll just use this in your document. And this is really useful because I already changed some of the links in my blog posts, but those handles, those anchors, stayed always the same. So I'll just go to the footer of my document and rename the links. Really useful. I recommend using or writing the documents like this. Now you can also put references to local parts of the document. I'm not quite sure how to do that from the top of my head, but I will show you. However, there is another useful thing you will probably need, and this is creating some tables. You can create tables really easily in here. However, I have something better for you. If you write into browser Markdown table generator, basically this is online generator which will generate the proper Markdown code. You just pick the number of columns and rows you want to see. For example, I want 3 columns and 2 rows. Now this one here is the heading or the title of the columns, so I can put the content some in here. 1, 2, 3. Now let's take a look at the preview. That will be easier. So first row is basically your heading. It's with bold font, and the rest is data. So probably it should look like this. First column. Now preview. Yeah. So this is a table. You don't need to generate it by hand. It's really useful. Also, they support this cool feature called compact mode, which will, as you can see in here, all data is balanced, like all slashes are below at the same space, which is visually really cool. However, if you have a huge table with many items, this will lose on readability if you want to edit this table by hand. So in this case, you can use compact mode, and this will use just the minimum number of signs to create the same table. Visually, it will look the same. Do you see? So this is a table, and you just copy the content in here and paste it into the Visual Studio. And now we have a table. All right. Let's take a look at the cheat sheet. What you should know is that Markdown has flavors. It's not a predefined standard, there are some flavors which subtly change. However, the basics are unified amongst all those flavors, and the most dominant one is the GitHub flavor because GitHub is used really everywhere, and many tools are inspired by GitHub. So this is something, you just type Markdown Cheatsheet GitHub and you should be able to find this document, and I will probably leave a link in the description of this video, so you will find it also there. This is a really nice summary, so if you want to create a header, you'll just take a look at this cheat sheet and you just pick the proper sign to write. Yeah, emphasis is really important, I forgot that, so let's get back to that. Let's say I want to have a part of the text as bold. Let's use 2 asterisks, and now it's bold. If I want to be in italics, I can use 1 asterisk. So this is emphasis, as they mentioned. I use that really often in a blog post when I want part of the text to be differently visible, so people can see that I wanted to make some emphasis on some word, or maybe a sentence or part of the sentence, so it's really nice. And what's important here, you can either use asterisks or underscores. It works the same. As I mentioned, Markdown is not standardized, so multiple ways can cause the same result, but that is okay. While I prefer using this method, some people prefer this, and it will work the same. So, and you can even combine italics or with bold, so everything is really nice and readable. So unordered lists, as I showed you, ordered the same. Images, they look like this, and I will give you only an example. I won't be using images in my document because I don't have anything like this prepared. However, you will see how such a document can look like. Links, I showed you how it works, and that's about all. Those here are GitHub specific things, and probably they will work only on their website. So tables, really useful. Task lists work only with GitHub. And emojis, they probably also work only with GitHub. However, you don't need that. For most of the documentation, you can just use this and tables. That's what I use. And now, let me show you a real example, because I was working in a public speaking club in its management for maybe 2 years, and I decided to create our documentation online as open source. Everybody can see under the hood, and I decided to document everything in Markdown and host it on GitHub. So there is an organization called Toastmasters Košice. I created. And most of the stuff here are documents, so this will be really useful. For example, it's in Slovak, but don't mind, it just the purpose of today's video is to show you Markdown and how those documents can look like. So for example, let's go here, or let's go back. This one here is also in Markdown, and you can reference, this one here is a picture, and this picture shows the license. Really cool stuff. First level heading, second level heading, and you can see, just click on the README file and click on the row tab, and you will see the row document. So this references some picture. Here I'm also referencing a picture, and some anchors which I use in the document. So most of the documentation looks like this, really easy viewable, and it can be also changed via GitHub if I'm signed. So all basic changes can be done like this. I don't need anything special. Web browser is just fine. What's cool? So take a look at this one. Here I'm using the front matter, and I define some categories I want to have so people can see it right when they open the document. Then there is a logo, and then again first level heading, some unsorted lists, or one unsorted list with my notes, and then my name. Another important thing here, let me show you a quick example. So I'll just copy that. I'll copy my name and I'll go into this document. Do you see? Even that in the source code those are 2 lines, Markdown renders this as a single line. This is a feature. It's like it's supposed to work, because you are creating some text and Markdown tries to figure out many things for you. So that allows you to forget on formatting of the text. I can have long paragraphs and I can have short paragraphs, like, and those will be formatted the same in Markdown. So if I change the window size, those will be reformatted. Do you see? It's dynamic now, but sometimes we really want to have this hard space or hard break, I don't know how it's called. And what's great is that Markdown is basically a subset of HTML, so every HTML tag you know can be also used in Markdown. So we can use breaking space. Voila! It's that simple. So if there is something which is not supported by Markdown, you can just use a regular HTML tag and it will work. However, I think that most of those basic markups were selected by great care, and if you stick to the basics, your documents will be really tidy and clean. So before you start messing around with this and add some HTML tags, just think first and really think of if you really need this. Sometimes you really do, but most of the time I don't think so. This is maybe the only HTML tag I'm using commonly in my documents. So this is Markdown. I showed you the basics, and maybe I will show you how it's managed in the source code. It's really quick, and that is the biggest advantage of this format, because it's text-based, and Markdown and Git works really well in tandem. So I can see all my changes in history, not in this case because this was for only one file, but let's get to the top of the repository, and now you can see all my commits. Yeah, and now I can just click in here and I can see what change I've made. In this case I replaced this line and I added 2 spaces and something like that. So because it's a text-based format, I can see the changes like this, because Git supports diffing between text files. If this was a binary format like doc, I wouldn't be able to see those changes like this. That is a really huge advantage for me. And also this Markdown is really easily integrated into my overall workflow, because, you know, I'm a software engineer and I do this stuff. However, I think that many people could actually benefit from writing their code or their notes in Markdown. And maybe the last thing I will show you is the source code highlighting. This is specifically for programmers, for developers. However, let's make this video complete, so I'll show you around. There are 2 possibilities. First, let me grab some code. So this is some Arduino code. Let's take a look at the CPP file, or this will be better. All right, so I have some class, and I want to add this into Markdown. Now let's go into Visual Studio Code and copy this. Looks like the first part is not is misread by Visual Studio Code. Anyway, it's not how it's supposed to be. Just use those characters. It's backslashes, I think, backslash, and again. And now the whole block is part of this, as you can see, including the first line, which was misinterpreted. Now, you can also define the syntax, and for that you need to really check the Markdown flavor for the tool you are using, because this differs. But for the common languages, you probably just can write like CPP, and let's just remove that so you can see it's all black and white. Now I'll just turn on syntax highlighting for C++. Yeah, but you really need to check the syntax highlighting or the GitHub flavor for supported marks you want to use. And there is yet another way how to embed the code, and this is in place. So for example, I'm writing something and I want part of the sentence to be the code. So I'll just do that. Single escape. I'll write verbatim code and I end this. And as you can see, this part looks different to the rest of the text. So this is in place code, and this is the code which is separated somehow. Both look cool, both are for different purposes. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will see you tomorrow.